All right, today we're diving into something that's part science, part pure magic literary translation. And trust me, it is so much more than just swapping words. We're talking about a true art form, a craft that literally builds bridges between entire cultures.
So let's start with a classic, something we all know. It's raining cats and dogs. Simple enough, right? If you speak English, you immediately know that means it's raining really, really hard. But what happens when you try to take that simple little phrase across a language border?
Well, if you translate that word for word into Arabic, you're just going to get some very confused looks. Nobody's thinking about rain, they're probably picturing actual animals falling out of the sky. And that right there brings us to the big question. What does a literary translator actually do? This leads us straight into the whole lost in translation problem, because what gets lost is so much bigger than just a few words. Translators are constantly wrestling with these deep cultural meanings, with the author's original vibe, and sometimes with the very structure of the languages they're working with. We can really break it down into three main hurdles. First, you've got cultural differences. Then, there's trying to capture the authorial intent. And finally, the language structure itself. So let's tackle these one by one. First up, culture. This is a huge one. Take a word like aloof. In English, calling someone aloof isn't really a compliment, right? It means they're distant, maybe a little unfriendly, but in Arabic culture, that same quality can be seen as a positive thing, a sign of wisdom, of maturity. A translator has to navigate that kind of invisible minefield with every single word. And humor? Oh man, humor is one of the toughest nuts to crack. There's this fantastic example from an Arabic play where a character asks a woman if she's walking on the solution of her hair. Now, that's a literal translation of an idiom for being permissive, and her reply is just perfect. She says she always ties her hair back. It's funny because the audience gets the real meaning, but she's totally oblivious. How in the world do you even start to make that joke work in another language? Okay, next challenge, the author's voice. Think about a book like To Kill a Mockingbird. That Southern dialect is so critical to the book's entire feel. So how does a translator capture that for someone reading it in, say, Sudan? Do you try to find a regional Sudanese dialect that has similar social baggage? It's this massive creative puzzle. The translator almost has to become an actor, performing the author's voice in a completely new language. So, facing all of this, a translator basically comes to a fork in the road. They have to make this fundamental choice that's going to shape the entire book. Do they make the text feel familiar and, tame it? Or do they keep its foreign flavor? Let's look at that first path. It's called domestication. The goal here is pretty simple. Make the reading experience as smooth and seamless as possible. The translator will change cultural references and idioms so the whole thing feels totally natural, almost like it was written in your language to begin with. You want a perfect example of this? The Arabic dub of Disney's Monsters, Inc. is brilliant. There's a line in the original movie about the U.S. eastern coast. That reference would mean absolutely nothing to an Egyptian audience. So they changed it to As-Sahel Ash-Shamali, which is the North Coast, a super well-known vacation spot in Egypt. The original joke would have just died, but this little swap makes it land perfectly. That's domestication for you. Now, the completely opposite approach is called foreignization. And here, the translator intentionally keeps all the unique cultural and linguistic bits from the original. The point isn't to make it easy for you, it's to challenge you, to constantly remind you that you are stepping into a totally different world. So if we put them side by side, it's pretty clear. Domestication is chasing naturalness. It adapts things to feel familiar. Foreignization, on the other hand, is all about authenticity. It keeps the original references so the experience feels, well, foreign. It's really a choice between bringing the author to the reader or taking the reader to the author. So how do translators pull this off? Well, they have this whole toolkit of creative strategies they can use. And this is not a science with a formula. It's a true craft. It takes artistry and really good judgment. Let's look at two of the main tools in that kit. First, there's what we call free translation. This is where the translator sticks to the overall meaning, but they're free to change the wording so it sounds natural. Then you have adaptation, which is a whole other beast. Here, the translator might change things a lot, creating what is essentially a new work that's just inspired by the original. Think about how a movie can be based on a book. There's another really powerful tool, too, called cultural translation. This one lines up really nicely with that foreignization approach we talked about. The idea is that the translator's job isn't just to translate words, but to actually explain the cultural world behind the words, maybe with a footnote or some clever phrasing. They're basically acting as your cultural guide.
So after going through all of this, navigating culture, voice, structure, how do we even judge the final product? What is it that separates a good translation from a truly great one? Honestly, sometimes it feels like you're trying to measure something that's impossible to measure. A great translation is this incredible, delicate balancing act. It's got to be accurate to what the author intended, but it also has to be clear and just readable. It needs to capture the original style, give you a feel for the culture, and, this is the really crucial part, it has to create the very same emotional impact. When all of that comes together, the translation becomes a work of art, all on its own.
And that, right there, is why this all matters. This goes way beyond just a technical skill. The ultimate goal, the whole reason for doing this, is to build that bridge between cultures. A great translation is like a window into another world. It helps us appreciate how other people live and gives us a much deeper understanding of each other.
So I want to leave you with one final, fascinating question to think about. The next time you pick up a book that's in translation, just ask yourself, who are you really listening to? Is it the original author? Or is it the artist who had to take that masterpiece and repaint it brushstroke by brushstroke with a completely new palette of colors?